Sound Muskoka.
It's, by the way, I'm splitting my time with the honourable member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan, who is spending a great deal of time on this debate already, and I welcome his words as well. But I will start off with my 10 minutes to talk a little bit about my background. It seems that hearing the honourable member from Surrey Centre in his remarks, the honourable member from Brampton West with her intervention, they're seeming to make this bill about a general immigration bill, which is, of course, absolutely incorrect. Absolutely incorrect. So we're not going to take our lessons from the honourable members opposite when they get on their high horse and talk about their valid backgrounds. Nothing wrong with that. But I was born elsewhere. My mother's mother was born in Aleppo, Syria. My father was born in Cyprus. So I welcome the honourable members' comments about their backgrounds and their histories. But we have, on this side of the House, on the Conservative Party, proud backgrounds and histories as well. And we have a different perspective on this bill. Just as we respect their perspective, they should respect our perspective. And I do not want to hear the insinuation that somehow, if you vote against this bill, you're anti-immigrant, or you don't believe that the future of our country is in great part going to be built on people who were born elsewhere. Those are the facts of the situation. That's my personal history, Madam Speaker. And I take a little bit of umbrage when I hear the other side trying to corner the market on that particular point of view. So I am speaking as a first-generation Canadian. I'm speaking about the importance of successfully integrating into Canadian society to take advantage of all that this great country has to offer. But it does concern me that it appears that one of the government's first priorities, the Minister of Immigration's first priority, the Liberal government's first priority, is somehow to return the citizenship to convicted terrorists. There's no refuting the fact that the person who has the most to gain from this announcement, from this bill, is the heinous ringleader of the Toronto 18, Zachariah Amara. Those are the facts. Et nous croyons qu'il n'y a...
And we believe that there is indeed only one class of citizen. And all of these citizens deserve to be protected. Protected from acts of terror.
It is particularly alarming to me with Bill C-6 that it creates an unacceptable and frankly ridiculous double standard, which is that under C-6, under this proposed legislation, a convicted terrorist's citizenship rights are protected, whereas someone who commits fraud is eligible to have their citizenship revoked. Dans l'autre langue officielle, ce qui est particulièrement...
Now, in the other official language, what is particularly alarming about Bill C-6 to me is that it creates an unacceptable and, frankly, ridiculous double standard, which is that under C-6, a convicted terrorist citizenship rights are protected, whereas someone who commits fraud is eligible to have their citizenship revoked.
That while the Liberals are focused on ensuring convicted terrorists can have their citizenship back, we Conservatives instead are choosing to focus on maintaining Canada's strong global reputation as one of the best places to live, a bastion of freedom with jobs, hope, and security for all. Now let me talk about Section B of this bill, Madam Speaker. It removes the requirement that an applicant intend, if granted citizenship, to continue to reside in Canada. We believe that new immigrants and new Canadians, I repeat this for the record, they enrich our country. They make our Canadian experience more wholesome, more successful. The experiences and perspectives that they can bring within our borders are indeed integral to the Canadian experience. And we want newcomers. Just as when I arrived on these shores as a 4-year-old, not knowing anything about this country at that young age, relying on my parents' wisdom, and I thank goodness that they chose Canada as a place where they wanted to get ahead in their lives. And I know other members of our caucus, and indeed of all caucuses, maybe have these shared experiences of a new world as a youngster, coming here not knowing anyone, many times not knowing the language. But we want people to succeed. And we want people to experience our freedoms, experience our safe communities across this country, because it's not just about the freedom to succeed. It's also, and in many cases, newcomers are fleeing countries where they don't have the freedom to experience a safe community. But that's, by and large, what Canada does offer. And so we want that safety as well as that freedom, Madam Speaker. That's the critical part about Bill C-6, which we find objectionable. And it's important to clarify, let me state this for the record, Madam Speaker, that this intention to reside provision does not restrict a citizen's mobility rights as guaranteed under the Charter. Rather, it reinforces the expectation. It reinforces the expectation that citizenship is a privilege given to those with the intention of making Canada their permanent home. That's the whole purpose of it. Le Parti conservateur supporterait un...
The Conservative Party would support an amendment to strike this component from the bill.
Now, Section C of this bill reduces the amount of time a person must have been physically present in Canada before applying for citizenship, from 4 out of 6 years to 3 out of 5. Now, as stated, newcomers to Canada should receive every opportunity to succeed in every way possible, of course. The longer an individual lives, works, studies in Canada, the greater the connection, Madam Speaker, the greater the connection that that person will have to our country. On this side of the House, Madam Speaker, we believe that stronger residency requirements do promote integration, greater attachment to Canada, and ultimately success in this great country of ours. Make no mistake, Canadian citizenship is a very special thing, not easily emulated around the world. It bestows rights, freedoms, and protections that many foreign nationals are not privy to. As Canadians, they can vote and seek elected office. As such, we believe it is very important to be an active participant in Canadian life for a significant period of time prior to be granted citizenship, in order to enrich both their personal experiences within Canada as well as our country's future. So we would support an amendment that would strike this component from the bill. Madam Speaker, I think what it comes down to in the minute that I have left is a conception of an open, free, democratic, welcoming society, but one that enjoys the protections under the law, one that protects current citizens and permanent residents and newcomers, as well as bestowing those freedoms. On this side of the House, we offer a balanced approach to these kinds of issues, balancing freedoms with responsibilities and protections. And that is why we have the position we do on Bill C-6. Thank you. Merci.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires? The honourable member for Etobicoke Lakeshore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you to the member for his speech. I agree with a number of comments that he made. The value we all place on Canadian citizenship, the importance of immigration. I don't think anybody is here as part of this debate to lessen either one of those things. What we're talking about is a very specific issue, and he mentioned it himself, the word terrorism. Canadian citizenship comes with certain obligations. It doesn't come with conditions, it comes with obligations. And those obligations are to conduct yourself in accordance with Canadian values. But that means conducting yourself with values of the rest of the world too. And one of the values Canada has is supporting its allies, friends, and colleagues. And if we are exporting people who have been convicted of a crime as serious as terrorism and putting them in a place where they could offend again, that is not acting in accordance with Canadian values. I would ask my friend across the floor if he agrees with that.
The honourable member for Parry Sound Muskoka.
Well, I thank the member for Etobicoke Lakeshore for his intervention. And of course, all of these would be done in a case-by-case basis. No one wants to increase the possibility of terrorism by a particular act, and indeed, I'm sure that would be challenged in our courts if it were to be the case. But I can assure the honourable member, in my time as president of the Treasury Board, we dealt with many, many cases where we revoked citizenship. Typically, the cases involved someone lying in their application for citizenship, that lie being found out, and therefore the citizenship being revoked. Those were most of the cases that I dealt with, Madam Speaker. And I would just say to the honourable member, if we can kick someone out of our country for lying on their citizenship form, surely we can kick out dual nationals, those with another citizenship, who have committed a terrorist act in this country. Surely we can do that, Madam Speaker. That is our point of view.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires. L'honorable député de Drummond.
The honourable member for Drummond. Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. And I'd like to thank the Liberals for having brought forth this bill, which remedies the poor Conservative policies put in place and which put us back on the right track. Now, as you know, to achieve that, a number of experts talked about this bill and said that it ran counter to the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and it was unconstitutional. And the Canadian Bar Association, for example, stated that. The groups like Amnesty International, the Canadian Council for Refugees, the Quebec Bar Association, and others. So why are the Conservatives so determined to defend those points which were detrimental, bad points in the bill, when they ran counter to the Charter and were unconstitutional? The honourable member for Parry Sound Muskoka. Madam Speaker, I'm a lawyer too, and I can say that it's important to point out that in the Charter, it's important to have protection for Canadian citizens. And that, too, is a part of our laws. If we can have a decision that will better protect Canadians, well, then that's the responsibility of our government.
First priority is to protect our citizenry within the framework of reasonable laws, and this does answer that reasonable framework.
Questions et commentaires, questions and comments. The honourable member for Durham, a very brief question so we can get a brief answer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In my speech this morning, I talked about this being a policy choice, equating the moral blameworthiness of taking away citizenship for fraud, for immoral acts committed abroad, but now removing it for committing such acts at home for 3 narrow provisions. Could the honourable member, as a lawyer, talk about this as a public policy choice? Treason was a ground of revocation under 3 Liberal Prime Ministers. That policy choice has not been explained. Could he comment?
A very, very brief answer from the member for Parry Sound Muskoka.
I think the honourable member has alluded to this very well, Madam Speaker. This is a policy choice, which, as I said, is counter to other provisions which do revoke citizenship, or historically have done so in the past, for things that are similar to this or even less important than this, Madam Speaker. So let's make sure the law is on all four squares and all the best grounds, and I think that's a better road to go.